I, Lelouch v. Britannia, command you. Now all of you.
Subscribe now.
Is it me, or is Lelouch v. Britannia now relegated from being the Tony Stark of the Code Geass franchise to now being the Stan Lee?
Somewhere. Hey everybody, look at me. I'm Stan Lee, doing my subtle cameo. Excuse me, Scott. This is a DC movie?
I know what some of you might be thinking. Yes. Lulu has made a cameo or two in the Code Geass spin-offs, however, isn't comparing him to Stan Lee a bit too much?
That's a really good point, Diane. Thank you so much for bringing that up. Thank you.
You might have a point, and I could just be getting ahead of myself, but humor me for a second, if you will. Just look at Lelouch's cameo appearances in both Akito, the Exiled, and Rosé of the Recapture. To call them pointless would be an understatement. The glorious days of Lelouch being the center of this universe seem long gone, which, if you think about it, is insane, especially when you consider that none of the other protagonists the franchise has introduced come anywhere close to the epicness of Lelouch v. Britannia. But before I explain further why anime's most beloved main character, Lelouch, could be relegated to making pointless fan service cameos for the franchise's foreseeable future, please take the time to like and subscribe. If you're a Code Geass fan like me, then you're at the right place. This is the Geass Network, the place where we discuss, theorize, and cover all things Code Geass. Now, for those who are unfamiliar with Stan Lee, as insane as that sounds, you're probably confused why I'm comparing him to Lelouch. So it's probably a good idea I give you a brief history about the man. Stan Lee is a legendary comic book writer, editor, publisher, and producer. He rose to fame in Marvel Comics, where along with other comic creator legends, he brought to life some of the most iconic comic book characters, from the likes of Spider-Man, X-Men, the Fantastic Four, and Iron Man, and countless others. So yeah, I'm sure you're familiar with his creations. The man was the primary creative leader for Marvel Comics for 2 decades, and continued to be the company's figurehead even after his retirement. Wow, that's pretty impressive. Now let's get to the part that's relevant to this video's topic. Stan Lee frequently made cameo appearances in films and television shows based on Marvel properties, as Marvel films gained more prominence in the 2010s. Stan Lee's cameos became a staple, a popular feature that audiences expected to see in every Marvel movie or show. Now don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to shade Stan Lee's legacy by referencing him in regards to Lelouch's predicament. While the creator of Spider-Man cameoing in a Spider-Man films is perfect, unfortunately, Lelouch making meaningless cameos that have little to zero narrative relevance isn't so perfect.
Was it for fun? Or was it because she's Kaguya's?
Speaking of spin-offs, how about we delve deeper into that and see how the franchise's expansion has impacted Lelouch? Now, in my opinion, focusing on the expansion of the Code Geass franchise is the right place to start. Given the fact that Lelouch of the Rebellion was an original anime, and not a manga adaptation like many of its contemporaries, I'm referring to the likes of Death Note and Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood. The studio had the option to further explore this universe, and oh, explore they did. From the Akito the Exiled series, which only had 5-hour-long episodes, to the polarizing Rosé of the Recapture, Sunrise didn't waste any time in trying to make Code Geass their new Gundam Wing. However, there was one obstacle. In fact, there were 2. The first obstacle, oddly enough, is the original anime itself. Despite its ending constantly praised as one of the best anime conclusions ever, it also doesn't really lend itself to any sort of continuation. The main character died, and the whole world was now in an age of everlasting global peace, or the Zero Requiem as it's referred to in the anime. As you can see, this ending doesn't really scream sequels.
With this, the world will gather not for an exchange of force, but for an exchange of open dialogue around one table. Mankind will be able to move forward into the future. The Zero Requiem.
The video I just played brings us to the second obstacle the studio was facing. The series' main conflict, between Japan and the Holy Britannian Empire was resolved and brought to a satisfying conclusion. The evil emperor, Charles, was dead, and as Lelouch says in the clip, the world would come together to form a dialogue of peace and not war.
Kumbaya, Kumbaya, my lord, Kumbaya, Kumbaya, my lord.
World peace is all well and good if you have no intentions of telling any more stories in this universe. However, if you're looking to try and expand this franchise through spin-offs and sequels, well, you've got a problem on your hands. Now let's move on to the cameos. The first one was in the Akito the Exiled series. I don't know about any of y'all, but personally, I was shocked when Lelouch made his first appearance in the OVA series, and under a completely different name no less, Sir Julius Kingsley. In my opinion, I thought it was a pretty smart way of including Lelouch into the story, given the timeline in which this series takes place in. While I feel the way they included Lulu was genius, how they chose to use him in the series was absolutely pointless. Sir Julius Kingsley's presence in the story ultimately had no impact on Akito the Exiled's story, which I must admit was pretty disappointing. Okay, now let's move on to Lulu's other cameo appearance, Rosé of the Recapture. Hey, don't kill the messenger. I know Rosé was a disappointment, but we still have to talk about it. For me, the Rosé of the Recapture series was one that was riddled with many disappointments. And the way they chose to use Lulu was definitely among my issues with the anime. The spin-off opted to use Lelouch more sparingly than Akito did, which was wise, and even went as far as to make Lulu the code-bearer who formed a contract with Sakuya in the first place.
Do you desire power? The power of the king will condemn you to solitude.
Despite their thinly veiled attempt to make it look like Lelouch actually had a narrative reason to be in the series, it was obvious that the studio was simply fulfilling their mandatory fan service quota for the franchise. I personally don't have a problem with characters like Nina or Cornelia making cameos, like we saw in Rosé. However, I feel like Lelouch should be treated with a bit more respect. Just imagine if Robert Downey Jr.'s Tony Stark had made a cameo appearance in every Marvel movie. In my eyes, that would have completely undermined the character's aura. And to me, the oddest part of Lelouch's cameo in Rosé was his look. I'm talking about the gypsy hippie-esque garb he had on. I thought the gypsy look at the end of the Resurrection film post-credit scene looked badass. But Lulu's gypsy look in Rosé of the Recapture was lame, for a lack of a better term. Now we know that we have a new anime series that's coming. We've been given very little information regarding this new project, however, based on the key visuals that were released. It's clear, much to the dismay of many, that Lelouch isn't the main character of this one either. Now whether Lulu is going to make any appearances remains to be seen. But, given this franchise's history when it comes to spin-offs, there's probably a pretty good chance that Lelouch will have a cameo of some sorts. I've mentioned before that I'm looking forward to the new anime, Asper the Star Chaser, despite my disappointment with Rosé of the Recapture series. My only hope for this new spin-off is that it tries to stray away from relying on fan service and cameos. I would prefer it solely focuses on establishing its characters, as well as its narrative. In conclusion, I want to address the future of Lelouch v Britannia. We know that Sunrise is focused on expanding this franchise. They've made that quite clear. So, if we as Code Geass fans should expect more content, then what role should we expect Lelouch to play going forward? If it were up to me, we'd get a continuation of the Lelouch of the Resurrection film. I'd set the project centuries in the future, in an interstellar society. Take the franchise to space. I know I've talked about this in previous videos before, but if you're going to make Code Geass the new Gundam Wing, then you have to take the franchise to outer space. I mean, they've already announced a manga crossover between Gundam and Code Geass. Lulu now has Charles's code, so this means he's immortal. This allows the studio to set any future Lelouch stories in any time period. That, in my opinion, would be the preferable route to take the character in. The idea that Lelouch was resurrected just so he could serve as the franchise's Stan Lee is just stupid. So for now, I will keep crossing my fingers that Lulu doesn't show his face in the Asper the Star Chaser anime whenever it debuts. Until then, I want to thank you for watching the video, and ask you to please like and subscribe. If you enjoyed the video, goodbye.
I, Lelouch v. Britannia, command you. Now all of you.
Subscribe now.